All right, we are wrapping up this week by talking about cellular differentiation. This isn't going to be a super long video. There's not a ton to cover for this particular section, but it is still important to be aware that we do have different levels of specialization with our cells. So we're going to talk about those different levels, and then we're just going to look at a couple examples of how this appears in the body itself. So stem cells, by definition, are very unspecialized cells, so they're very general cells that can divide without limits as needed. So these are not the same thing as cancerous cells that divide without limits continuously. Stem cells can have that division without limits, but they're only going to divide and make more copies of themselves when they are signaled by the body that we need more stem cells of various types, which we'll get to in just a minute. All right, so these need special signals from the body under specific conditions. Certain genes need to be turned on in order for them to start continuing down a specific pathway for whatever type of cell is needed in the body. All right, so this is not the same thing as cancerous cells that just have a mutation that makes them divide uncontrollably without any additional signals. They don't need special conditions to replicate under. They just start dividing nonstop. All right, stem cells need special signals. So we have some different types of stem cells. The first type is totipotent stem cells. These are what we see in embryos. Mainly, these can become literally any other type of cell in the body. So we're going to look at how this flow happens in just a moment on the next slide. But totipotent stem cells can become literally anything else in the body. Pluripotent stem cells are the next level down, so they are slightly more specialized. They can still become any tissue type, but they are not going to help support the body to develop, especially at that embryonic stage. So it cannot help create the body, so just slightly more specialized. Multipotent stem cells, these are a little bit more specialized. They have been told you are going to become this general type of cell. You're going to become some type of blood cell, you're going to become some type of muscle cell, you're going to become some type of epithelial cell. So they have a direction, but they can still become any type of cell within that specific group. So they can become any type of blood cell. If they've been specialized in that direction, they can become any type of epithelial cell if they've been specialized in that direction. So they have kind of a category of cell that they've been specialized into, but they can become any type of cell within that category. Next level is oligopotent. These can only become certain types of cells within that specific group. So I think the best way to go over this is to look at a chart on a couple slides from here. But they're already within that specific category of cell, and then they've also gotten specialized in a specific subcategory of that higher arching category that the multipotent stem cells are part of. And then last but not least are unipotent stem cells. These can only make more copies of the specific type of cell it is. So, for example, like a leukocyte, a white blood cell, there are multiple types of leukocytes. So oligopotent would be some type of leukocyte, whereas unipotent would be, say, lymphocytes. So lymphocytes is a subtype of those white blood cells, and we can have unipotent lymphocytes, and so they're only going to be able to make more copies of other lymphocytes. So cells differentiate, which means they become more specialized through genetics again. All right, and those genes are signaled by a variety of factors, depending on what type of cell is needed. So this is kind of a graphical representation of what that can look like. So up here at the top we have those totipotent embryonic stem cells. So again, like I said previously, these are found primarily in embryos, and these are super generalized cells. And then we get special signals. We make more copies of this totipotent embryonic stem cell and signal various totipotent cells to become pluripotent into these 3 different categories of cells in an embryo. So we have endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. And if we follow this further down into that multipotent level, so endoderm cells, they are going to become lung cells, pancreas cells, among other things. So they have special types of tissues that they are going to differentiate into later on down the line, depending on what signals they get. Mesoderm, we're looking at heart muscle, red blood cells, among other things. And then the ectoderm is going to head in the direction of skin and neurons. Not much else for that ectoderm line other than skin and neurons, but these others have other types of cells that we're going to be looking at. All right, so that totipotent stem cell is going to make tons and tons of copies of itself so that some of those cells can be signaled to become that endoderm line. Some of them are going to head towards the mesoderm line, and some are going to head towards that ectoderm line. And then within each of those categories, they are going to further differentiate out into these multipotent stem cells. So then we're getting something like this that is going to be signaled that it's going to become some type of pancreas cell. There's multiple types of cells in the pancreas. So that knows it's going to go to the pancreas. It just doesn't know what cell type in the pancreas it's going to be yet. All right, so that's just kind of that overview. So we looked at this graph last week, the hematopoiesis graph. So this is a really great example of how this works. So we are going to be starting, down here at that multipotent stem cell line. So we have a multipotent hematopoietic stem cell, or a hemocytoblast is what they can also be referred to as. But this is a multipotent stem cell, and basically it has been signaled to become a level of specialization where it knows it's going to become a blood cell. It just doesn't know yet what type of blood cell. And so we can keep making more copies of these multipotent hematopoietic stem cells, and those copies are going to be signaled to head towards either the myeloid cell line or the lymphoid cell line. So we have a couple different directions those can go. Myeloid stem cells, so the next level down here, these can become multiple cell types, as you can see. So they can become megakaryocytes, which produce platelets or thrombocytes. They can become erythrocytes or red blood cells. They can become mast cells, which are part of our allergy response. They produce histamine. Or they can become myeloblasts, which can then further divide into 4 different types of cells. And then we can, as you can see, kind of keep going further down in levels of specialization. So multipotent up here, and then we slowly signal those multipotent stem cells to continue further down one of these lines. The lymphoid cell line, we can get these natural killer cells, and then smaller lymphocytes, which are B and T lymphocytes, and plasma cells. We'll talk more about a lot of these white blood cells when we get to the immune system later in the semester. We'll talk about erythrocytes and platelets in the blood unit when we get there towards the middle of the semester. But this is how we get these levels of specialization. So chemical signals from the body are coming through telling us, oh, we need more red blood cells, so signal those multipotent stem cells to start heading down this myeloid stem cell line so we can get more of those red blood cells that we need. And that wraps up the material for week 2.